Japan is known in pop culture for basically just giant monsters and samurai, so it is logical that these two segments would eventually come to intersect with one another, and Daiei's Daimajin Trilogy is one of the earliest and probably most successful examples of such a crossover. All released during 1966, these three movies tried to bridge the gap between the country's two most popular cinematic genres. Despite that, they ultimately feel less like a monster movie set in feudal Japan and more like a period piece that happens to feature a giant walking statue towards the end of it. Not for nothing really, as they were directed by Daiei regulars who had previously worked on films of the Zatoichi franchise, among many others of the genre. For this reason, the trilogy is like nothing we've seen so far. Having been shot all back to back, with much of the same crew and cast, including Akira Ifukube, the composer of all those movies from the competition, the movies all follow basically the same structure, with a group of peasants suffering in the hands of oppressive feudal lords. Their only comfort comes from worshipping the giant statue that houses the vengeful demon Majin. Towards the end of the film, this statue comes alive and the spirit takes revenge on those who abuse its worshippers. The details change, but unless stated otherwise, I will treat these three as being the same thing. So the first thing to notice on these movies is how long the titular monster takes to actually appear. Basically the whole movie. The statue itself is a constant through most of the story, but it only starts moving once we have 20 minutes of film left. If you go into these flicks expecting wall-to-wall kaiju action akin to a Godzilla adventure, you are probably gonna be left disappointed. Like I said, this is pretty much a samurai movie through and through. This story relies a lot on feudal clans' politics, with warfare, betrayals, and their relationship with the common folk. Despite that, it was advertised as being another giant monster movie. Just look at the posters of these things. I know it would be hard to advertise it as anything else, all things considered, but when you think about how the titular creature is basically a literal deus ex machina that generally has little impact on the plot before the 1 hour mark, it is still weird. And make no mistake, the Daimajin is a deus ex machina. He awakens out of nowhere to save the good guys. It would be one thing if the main character's journey was about unleashing the statue, but this is not the case, with the closest thing we get to it being in the first movie when the titular monster explicitly answers the praise of one of the heroes. And even then you can see how this is still an unexpected external force coming down to solve the conflict. With that in mind, I would be lying if I said the scenes with the Daimajin aren't worth it. There's something novel about seeing this kind of action in a pre-industrial context, with the monsters smashing wood buildings and stone walls. That they try repelling it using cannons instead of modern artillery is also extremely amusing when you are used to seeing Godzilla stepping on contemporary Tokyo. These sequences are carried out by quite brilliant special effects that owe nothing to the ones made by Toho's crew, even surpassing the competition in many instances. More than the strength of the effects though, what truly elevates the Majin's rampages is the gloomy aesthetic that permeates the trilogy. The giant statue is shot like this ghostly apparition, its footsteps being heard for kilometers before it finally steps out of the fog to tear down a wall. Hell, even before starting to move, the sculpture is framed like this larger-than-life place of worship. Very cool looking. The visuals greatly complement the supernatural way the demons treated through the story by the characters. In this sense, it taking so long to finally appear in the flesh actually does pay off, as you get more time to build the mystique around the Daimajin. You can certainly thank the director's backgrounds in slower pace, atmospheric period flicks for this distinct flavor of action. And not just the action, as like I said, the movies unravel like thrillers more than anything, building tension and stakes before unleashing the titular creature to take care of things. As such, it is certainly better to approach these films as samurai dramas with some supernatural elements thrown in. Honestly, this is where the real meat of the trilogy lies, and where they shine the brightest, far from the over-the-top sequences of destruction. These are super enjoyable adventures, filled with twists at every turn, as the characters try to take back what is theirs from their oppressive overlords. Things get pretty heavy pretty fast. Even the third one, which stars a group of children traveling to free their families from captivity, has very dark and intense moments, including the brutal execution of a man and the death of one of the children. You can add to the gloom of everything the fact the heroes of all the 3 movies fail hard to depose the villains, giving them the chance to be even bigger bastards than they already were, which is what makes it more justifiable the Deus Ex Machina that is the Daimajin, and why it is so satisfying when the monster nails one of the bad guys to a cross. Once 1966 had rolled out, there was only one further installment of the franchise, that being a 2010 TV show called Daimajin Canon, which not only moves the action to the present day, not only never refers to the creature as Daimajin outside of the title, but is also a superhero show, so not a lot in common, to be honest. Before that, Kadokawa was planning to reboot the franchise with a new movie directed by Takashi Miike, but after the financial failure of Gamera the Brave, the project was canned. Miike and Daimajin's paths would cross once more, however, as the monster would make a fully fledged appearance in the director's The Great Yokai War Guardians. This legacy proves that, while certainly obscure when compared to Toho's monster flicks and, heck, even Daiei's other kaiju franchise, the Daimajin Trilogy nonetheless managed to stand out among its contemporary peers by more or less successfully blending multiple cinematic genres into something extremely novel at the time. There have been further attempts at creating movies along these lines, but none of them are as fondly remembered nowadays. So definitely check this out if you haven't done so already. It is unlike pretty much anything out there. Bad news, folks! Next week I will again be going on vacation, and this time I'll be out the whole month of October, so you won't be hearing from me for a while. Regardless, I wish you all a good month and I will see you in November.